Good morning to all of you, Cignal TV subscribers, Facebook followers, and of course, those who follow us on YouTube. Welcome to your program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us this morning, July 18, 2023. It's a Tuesday. And looking out my window here in Barrio Capitolio, Pasig, the sun is certainly shining. It looks like it's going to be a bright day today, but do not be misled. There is a low pressure area east of Mindanao, and the weatherman says it is likely to turn into a typhoon. So, if you have laundry to do it now, because chances are if the LPA becomes a typhoon and curves towards Luzon, we are going to be busy filling our dams. But always thank God for that. Really thank God for that, because at least we now have ample supply of water. Okay, thank you to Cignal TV subscribers and PLDT Home Fiber Optic Internet for sustaining our program on the web and on the air. Today, we are going to have introductory conversation. When I say introductory conversation, it's not every day we have cabinet secretaries on the program. In fact, I have said it time and again, that is my lament. Agenda is open to all government officials because we believe that the public must know their leaders, and we believe that the public must be informed of the program. So I am grateful that today we will be joined by a cabinet secretary, and we do hope you get to know him better and understand why he qualifies for the very important position he holds. But before that, let's go to our daily starter. And please pay attention to our daily starter, because it is something that actually may kurot sa puso. It actually touches hearts, and it speaks to all of us. And our daily starter comes from the poet C.R. Gibson, and his message is this: I have wept in the night at my shortness of sight, that to others' needs made me blind. But I never have yet had a twinge of regret for being a little too kind. Please reflect on that. Let me repeat it. I have wept in the night at my shortness of sight, that to others' needs made me blind. But I never have yet had a twinge of regret for being a little too kind. I chose that daily starter for today, especially coming from a wake of a young woman last night, all of 54 years old. Wife of one of our pastors in church. They went for a vacation, and instead of having a fun, memorable time, she contracted some viral infection, turned into sepsis, and they came home with her remain. And you know, this is the thing that we've always pointed out on Agenda. We don't have a certificate of longevity. We are not promised tomorrow. And also there are people who will encounter these things. What is important is that we are always there for others, to be kind, to lend a hand, give cash if necessary, because you will never regret. Okay, I mean, I'll be honest, there are days you might be saying, kakainin, isusubo ko na lang, binigay ko pa sa iba. But trust me, time and again, even when the devil speaks that tinge of regret or thought of regret, the Lord has always showed me that you will never be sorry for helping others, okay? He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. Okay, let's now go to the news of the front page. A quick glance at today's paper. The Philippine Star, July 18, 2023, and the front page goes, DOJ Chief reiterates ICC not welcome here. Realizing that today, the ICC court or International Criminal Court will rule today whether or not it will recognize the appeal of the Philippines not to be investigated and to be allowed to carry on the investigation of the drug war abuses on its own terms. The Secretary of Justice, Boying Remulla, has reiterated, you are not welcome here. Okay, at the top of the front page, a bit of good news for the header. Angat Bustos Dam levels back to normal and release water. Ba, nagre-release na sila ng tubig last week. Nagtitipid sila. But now they are releasing water for the farmers. They're not throwing away the water. Okay, to the left of the header, we have President Marcos leading the distribution of various forms of government assistance to more than 1,000 beneficiaries in San Fernando, Pampanga yesterday. He also witnessed the signing of a memorandum of agreement for the establishment of kadiwa ng Pangulo or kadiwa in every local government unit nationwide. Yan po yung sinasabi natin with Secretary Benny Laguesma. Sana it would also be kadiwa in every company because that is just how you systematize it. Kadiwa in every company. Meanwhile, the LTFRB is set to put in contingency plan for the strike, the transport strike that is supposed to happen starting July 24. So, of course, people are not going to be bothered by that because I think most people will still go on with life. But anyway, BBM on SONA, we have made significant progress. President Marcos yesterday described his upcoming second State of the Nation address on July 24 as very simple, but would explain to the people the significant progress his administration has achieved in his first year in office. Meanwhile, President Marcos is also scheduled to sign the Maharlika Bill today. Okay, ayan po ang sinasabi ni Senate President Mig Zubiri. A bit of good news, more e-government systems launched to reduce bureaucracy. Two electronic government systems or digital government systems have been launched. One is the feedback mechanism. One is the ELGU or Electronic Local Government Unit System that helps citizens conduct their business with government through e-platforms, and e-report, which is the equivalent of the 888 ba yun or something. Okay, so yun po, no? E-report enables citizens to relay their concerns about crime, fire, other emergency situations. Okay, now, 75% of Pinoys want U.S.-Philippine military partnership in the West Philippine Sea. Based on a rider question in a recent Pulse Asia survey, it reveals that 75% of them surveyed want U.S.-Philippine military partnership. Okay. And last but not the least, eto po, naunahan ko na sila. I was quick to the draw yesterday. I filled up my tank at Petron because today you are going to wake up to discover that diesel prices have gone up by 2 pesos and 10 centavos, and gasoline went up by 1 peso 90 centavos, all because it is all the fault of Saudi Arabia again. Saudi Arabia has declared that they are going to reduce their production. And of course, when you're the only seller in town, you can decide whether you're going to sell more or sell less. So anyway, that's our situation. And please do read the Philippine Star, get a physical copy or subscribe online because there's a lot more for you in there. And I want to reiterate, it did not land in the front page, but it is part of today's news. There is an LPA, low pressure area east of Mindanao, expected to become a typhoon, and with a possibility of curving towards Luzon. So whether it hits Mindanao, Visayas, Luzon, pare-pareho tayong Pilipino, babagyuhin, we're all affected one way or the other. Now, let's go to that interview that I was talking about. One of the few rare situations we get to talk to a cabinet secretary. Sana all. But nonetheless, Gab, please roll out the Betamax.
Earlier this month, the Malampaya Consortium ensured that it is on the track to drill deep water wells by the end of 2024. The consortium, led by Tycoon Enrique Razon's Prime Energy, plans to invest about $600 million to further explore and utilize the remaining gas reserves in the Malampaya gas field. Energy Secretary Raphael Lottila said they are expecting for new or additional supply from the field by 2026. President Bongbong Marcos earlier renewed its production contract with private companies for the final 15 years or until February 22, 2039. The administration said it is determined to extract every last drop from the Malampaya gas field, which accounts for about 20% of Luzon's total electricity requirements. Let's further discuss this on today's agenda.
Attorney Raphael Popo Lottila currently serves as the Energy Secretary for the second time. He previously held this position during the Arroyo administration from 2005 to 2007. Aside from this, Lottila was the president and CEO of the Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation, or SALM. He previously worked as the Undersecretary at the National Economic and Development Authority under 3 presidents. Lottila also worked in the private sector as an independent director in various conglomerates with diverse interests, including energy.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. Welcome to the program, and thank you for making time to join us today.
Good morning, Cito. It's a privilege for me to join you as well.
Okay, I have to be honest. I have to be forthright with you, Secretary. I was quite surprised when Team Agenda told me, sir, the team of Secretary Lottila is pitching for him to guest on the program. And I said, what? A cabinet secretary actually willing to come on the show? That's a miracle. Of course, you don't deny that. I mean, what's going on? You have me worried because most of your associates avoid us. And here you are, you're being so nice and so gracious.
Well, Cito, it's simple. We would like to communicate with the public the programs and projects of the department. And in the last, I've been here only for less than a year, actually, because I came in later than most of the cabinet members. But we've been so busy in the past year attending to bushfires left and right and making sure that the lights remain on in the country, that there has been very little opportunity for me to do so. But now, with some of the major and immediate concerns having been attended to, we can spend more time to converse with opinion makers like yourselves, so that our people get to better understand what the challenges that the energy sector faces, and then what are the things that we are going to do in order to address those challenges. So that's
Okay.
the reason why we welcome this opportunity.
When it was first announced that you were coming in as Secretary of Energy, I must share that the general reaction was, "Oh, he's a good guy. He's a nice guy," and that says a lot for people who have been in government, because most people don't get that kind of appraisal. But why you for secretary? The DOE is a very critical, very sensitive, politically, economically, and socially sensitive posting and concern. Why you? Because you were NEDA undersecretary, and yes, you were undersecretary under GMA. But why you at this particular juncture?
Well, in that to answer that particular question, Cito, I think you will need to interview the president. I don't know the reason myself. I never volunteered. I never asked for this position, and that's why it was also difficult for me to turn down the president when the opportunity arose.
Okay, so but what does the job entail? Because it's always been a debate among us ordinary citizens. It's like, oh, you have to be a technical guy, you have to understand industry, and then some people say, no, it's all executive management, economics, etc. What's involved in being Secretary of the Department of Energy?
Well, Cito, essentially the role is one that is different from what the public may expect. When I was first secretary in 2005, government still owned most of the power assets. So you will recall, National Power Corporation had control of almost all of the major generation plants. Then it was turned over to PISAM, or the Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management, for privatization. The same with transmission. Transmission was also part of National Power Corporation. So you can say that we had command and control of most of the power assets. Nowadays, it's completely different. In my first term as Secretary of Energy, my role was to facilitate that privatization process. Our Congress had made the policy decision that we were going to turn over the generation plants to the private sector, because the debts that had amounted during the time that the National Power Corporation went through a difficult period was already so enormous that it became a drag on the Philippine economy as a whole. Mm-hmm. Now, I come back 16, 17 years later, and what do we find? Our energy sector is largely in the hands of the private sector. So
okay, hold it there, Secretary. You come back, the assets have been privatized. Okay. Was it a good decision or was it a bad decision? You were simply the implementer. It was a decision of Congress, maybe even the executive back then. But was it the right decision? Or looking back, you kind of shake your head and that was a huge mistake?
No, I wouldn't say it was a huge mistake or a mistake at all. One of the positive results of the privatization process is that government finances are more healthy now than before. And okay. I think it's quite obvious. Our budget, the national budget, is much bigger. And that's because the burden of having to finance the expansion and maintenance of the power sector has been shifted to private hands. Otherwise, the bleeding of National Power Corporation and the rest of the government sector would have continued had we not privatized. So that
Okay,
was a major achievement. Now,
Okay, so yeah.
on the other hand, we still have not completely, or we have not fully addressed a number of other concerns. We like to say that our power sector is only as strong as its weakest link. And we have what subsectors involved. From generation is only one. Then we have to transmit the power to the distribution utilities, and therefore the third would be the distribution utilities themselves. And from the distribution utilities, it goes to the consumers. So the transmission has also been privatized, and that's why the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines is the private concessionaire. And as far as the distribution utilities are concerned, the distribution utilities, besides the 121 electric cooperatives, which, by the way, are also organized as private entities, we have another 19 or 20 distribution utilities that are private in character. So getting all of these actors to do their part in order to ensure that our country and our people have adequate power resources to fuel the economy and our development is a more difficult task than simply to give out commands and expecting that they will be implemented.
What makes it difficult, Secretary Popo? Because because of all of these yellow alerts, red alerts in the past month, people were saying, "Ano ba? What on earth is happening with our energy sector? All these years we've had this problem. Why are we still playing catch up instead of the government and private sector really going full blast for alternative energy, more power generation, etc.? What's holding us back from going all out, Secretary?"
Well, there are a number of policy issues that affect the power sector as a whole. You have mentioned you alluded to a number of things. So first, of course, is that the market must be allowed to function well. Since we chose to privatize, then the market incentives for new generation capacity to be there must be maintained by government. But the tendency in the past has been a legacy of the command and control system is to dictate, for example, to try to control artificially the prices in the market, which is not fully reflective of the costs. Now, we also chose not to subsidize the power sector. So the cost of power in the country, if compared to other countries abroad, is among the highest in the region. And that's
Is that the main difference, Secretary, that other countries, their government pays part of the electric bill of the citizens or the power generation, whereas in the Philippines, it's take or pay?
Well, it's not really take or pay, but the thing is, we in the case, for example, of some of our neighbors, they have oil and coal supplies domestically,
Like Indonesia.
Right, Indonesia does that. So what Indonesia does is it establishes a two-tiered price system where the coal that it uses domestically is priced lower than what it exports to countries like ourselves. We can't do that because we don't have enough coal supply. In the case of oil, it's the same situation. Or natural gas. So Thailand does the same and Malaysia does the same. We are not as gifted as the other countries in terms of fossil fuels. So one of the solutions that we are looking at in terms of sources of power, therefore, as the President indicated, is to diversify our sources and to focus on indigenous sources. It is good. Indigenous, it is good that we are, even though we don't have much coal and oil, we have renewable energy sources. So that's the reason why there is a drive for us to maximize our use of renewable energy, because this one is found locally and therefore we will not be exposed to the vagaries of price fluctuations and supply constraints from other countries. We are more fully in control of this. But of course, it comes at a price, because the renewable energy technologies, at the time that we introduce them and at the time that we will be introducing the new ones, the initial price will be higher. But as time goes on, because renewable energy does not require us to buy imported fuel, then it will turn out to be cheaper for our country and our consumers. So that's on the policy level. The second, of course, is making sure that the playing field is level or fair for all market actors. And the President has stressed this time and again, that the best way to attract both foreign and domestic investors is to ensure that indeed the regulatory framework and the policy framework are both fair to everyone. So you have seen lately, for example, it's not only the Department of Energy that is crucial here, because under the electric power industry reforms that were initiated in 2005, the Department of Energy issues the policies. The main enforcer of those policies is the Energy Regulatory Commission. And it calls for better coordination rather than these two major agencies quarreling with each other. It's for these agencies to coordinate, for DOE to have policies that are implementable and coordinated in that sense with the Energy Regulatory Commission.
Wait a minute, Secretary, and I'm being totally transparent here, okay?
Yes.
I guess like many Filipinos, we are under the impression that the Energy Regulatory Board is under your office.
Yes, Cito, it's a good point to clarify, because the Energy Regulatory Commission is envisioned to be an independent agency, and therefore it is not attached to the Department of Energy, but rather it is attached to the office of the President. So
but does that make sense? Because, you know, isn't it just another, I mean, tatawagan ko yung ARTA. So sumbong ko yan sa ARTA, because, you know, you would think that that would be just another step to extend or complicate matters. Wouldn't it be ideal if the ERC were under your office, or is there a integrity or regulatory issue there?
Well, I think it wouldn't matter. I mean, for me, no? As far as I'm concerned, it wouldn't matter if the Energy Regulatory Commission is attached to the DOE or with the Office of the President. What is important is that the decisions of the Energy Regulatory Commission are evidence-based and in conformity with the policies that have been laid down under the IPIRA and under our laws, and consistent or pursuant to the implementing rules and regulations that the Department of Energy is empowered by law to issue.
Okay.
So,
Okay, well, let's shift that. Let's go back to our focus on the Department of Energy
right.
then.
But
So-
Cito, you're right there. It is important that the Energy Regulatory Commission is one that also has integrity. because it is the regulator of a more than 600 billion peso power industry. So at the end of the day, we have to have good institutions. And these institutions have to work closely with each other. And under the direction of the president, we are taking those steps while respecting the independence of the ERC. Because you see, rate setting will have to take into account the the market factors, like the costs that the industry players incur, and therefore politics should not interfere in the decisions of the Energy Regulatory Commission.
Okay,
So that's,
but I hope you don't mind. I just want to shift it back to what you were, because I'm very excited about what you were saying. Okay, so you need to bring in investors, you need to bring in partners in terms of the power generation, distribution programs. Where are we? Because it goes back to the same question or point. We're still playing catch up. What is the government, or what are you doing or trying to do to somehow encourage more and more people to invest on indigenous energy sources, alternative renewable energy sources?
well, a number of things that the government has initiated in the past year. It is pursuant to the president's call for the promotion of renewable energy. We have opened up renewable energy to 100% foreign investment. So it's not just a case of signaling to the foreign and domestic investors that we are fully open and that we welcome investors, but it also it signals that we government is willing to assist foreign investors in order to make their investments much easier. So corollarily, we have improved the electricity or the energy virtual one-stop shop system. Under this law that was approved by Congress several years ago, there are timelines for approvals of investments. So the policy is one to establish deadlines for all permitting agencies to act within the number of days specified, and therefore hasten the entire permitting process. You know very well that as the country as a whole has suffered from this shortfall, which is investments in the country as a whole, whether it's the power sector or some other sector, was lagging behind other countries because the ease of doing business was a challenge for the entire country. And that's why my appeal always is, it's not only the policy at the macro level, but it is even the permitting system at the level of the local government units. So permits, for instance, building permits, or permits that would have to be issued for construction of power lines. Our local government units have much also to contribute in order to facilitate the building of this infrastructure. So from the other agencies, the latest one that we are working on is on offshore wind with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and other agencies of government. And so we are coordinating our acts.
Okay, speaking of coordinating your act, that will be our next topic of conversation when we come back. Let's just go for a quick break. We'll be right back here on Agenda.
Thank you.
Boosting the country's power supply hasn't been the easiest of tasks for the government. Last week, Meralco said 500,000 of its customers were affected by brownouts as the Luzon power grid was put on yellow alert. Prior to this, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines placed the Luzon grid on red alert last May due to inefficient supply. Following these brownouts, the Energy Department cited the need for an NGCP performance audit. The DOE also pointed to transmission and supply availability issues as among the reasons why renewable energy developers lost interest in the agency's second green energy auction program. Aside from this, the agency urged the NGCP to immediately file a motion for reconsideration after the ERC or the Energy Regulatory Commission denied its request for monthly extensions on ancillary service agreements. So how exactly can the DOE and NGCP work together to avoid further brownouts in the future? That's another topic for today's agenda.
Okay, we continue our conversation with Secretary Raphael Lottila of the Department of Energy. He's the perfect guest. I don't have to do a lot of work today. Okay, Secretary Popo, welcome back again.
Thank you, Cito.
Okay, now you were talking about offshore wind, wind wave generation, energy generation, coordinating with departments such as the DENR, DILG, etc. Now, I am a supporter of solar, and it seems that it's not that easy. It's not that simple. I wrote about a particular project that I thought was the dream project of the Laguna Lake Development Authority. They were leasing out their area of operations, Laguna de Bay, to investors for solar farms. And after such an extensive study, and it was all green and go, it was just a question of announcing who the winning bidders were. Unfortunately, it was just, I think, a month or 2 months before the presidential election, and everything was put on hold. It's a kind of thing that investors tell me, Cito, how can we invest in your country if things like that happen? It's already just a contract signing, but politics again becomes an issue.
Yeah, well, like you, we want the Laguna Lake floating solar to be implemented as fast as possible. One of the advantages of the Laguna Lake solar project, the floating solar project, is that it is within the Meralco franchise area, and therefore the transmission of that power to the Meralco grid is not a difficult task. So the demand, the center of demand is of course in the Meralco franchise area. So that's why we would like this to be finished as soon as possible. Now there are a lot of if one is going to cast blame, there is enough to throw around, right? But precisely what are the things that we need to put in place here that would ensure its success? One of the things that you pointed out is the decisions made by the Laguna Lake Development Authority itself, that it will continue with what was started in the previous administration, and that the terms and conditions for leasing the surface area of Laguna Lake will be on fair terms. The other would be the environmental clearance certificate from ECC from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. So these things on the part of the DNR, it has already issued the guidelines on this. And then in the case of Secretary Tony Loizaga, made sure that this was acted upon. And on the part of the Laguna Lake Development Authority, it has already awarded it has issued the notice of award to the winning bidders. So on the part of the Department of Energy, ours is the issuance of the service contract. And we did that a few months ago with the Australian and Singaporean ambassadors present, because they were also supportive of the efforts of these companies, these foreign companies, to be involved. So we continue to encourage all these proponents. The last time around, in the green energy auction program, a number of these companies did not bid. So, and some of the reasons was alluded to already by the introduction of the program just now.
Yeah.
So
How do you correct all of these situations or provisions that scare off or discourage investors to participate in your projects?
Well, that's why we have been asking for instance, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines to hasten the system impact study. The system impact study is a study that is required by NGCP in order to ensure that whatever new generation can be absorbed or serviced by its transmission lines. But if the line or waiting time for the system impact study to be finished is 1.5 to 2 years before the project can even be approved, then that definitely is going to be a long wait for any developer.
Not to mention expensive, Secretary,
Of
because
course, the financing.
I was in resort development many years back, and then they came out with this environmental impact studies, etc. And when we started asking around what is the going rate, it ran into hundreds of thousands, and I said, and then it would take 6 months to 1 year, and you have investors waiting at the door wanting to build already. So I said, okay, well, you can just kiss those projects goodbye.
Exactly, because the waiting time is too long. In the meantime, the developers have already lined up their financing. They are paying commitment fees to their banks or financiers and just waiting for the drawdown. And if the date does not become definite, then we lose the investor. So that's the advantage of other countries, why they are attracting more investments than we are. And so here, Cito, you can understand, I can't command, NGCP says that I don't have any regulatory power over it. And therefore that I cannot regulate them in terms of the timelines for doing the system impact study. So the Energy Regulatory Commission is the only regulator that they recognize. But for the good of the country, I don't see why they can't speed it up and do the impact studies in a much shorter period of time, within 60 days as required under the law.
Okay, if it's required under the law, then you just put the law in their face.
Right?
Okay, this is the law. You have to abide.
Of course, and that's where, as I've said, the enforcement. If the regulated entity says, "Oh, the DOE has no powers over us," then we get into a messy situation, and that's where.
So you have to work with the ERC,
Of course,
to tell the NGCP.
Right.
Well, but what about Team Unity? Sorry, Team Unity. I mean, what?
Exactly. That's why I said it takes a lot of coordination. And we have to work. And I want private sector to succeed. But mere privatization alone is not the answer. We have to have smarter government regulation. And if it is necessary to introduce changes in the regulatory structure, I am prepared to propose that the changes be made.
Okay, so clearly your hands are tied in some areas, but is there anything that we can hope on, or something that you're doing that is going to make our energy requirements a lot better? Because playing catch up is just really crazy, and not to mention it's so expensive for most Filipinos.
Yes, there's no disagreement with you on that. And so we are looking at different approaches insofar as the transmission lines are concerned. Then we are looking at as well at pursuant to, as what I said, diversification of sources of power. So we have now the LNG, the liquefied natural gas. If you recall, one of the things that the president did was to extend the service contract of the Malampaya consortium for another 15 years. And that's because the present production from Malampaya has been on the decline as anticipated, because it is a finite or limited resource. And what has happened is that again here we've had to play catch up. The president has extended it for another 15 years because otherwise the consortium would have no incentive for developing the nearby fields. There are nearby fields within the same service contract area. But if the service contract is already going to end in 2024, what incentive will there be for the service contractor to engage in exploration and drilling? That's why it was necessary to look into the extension. And now that the extension has been approved, they have submitted to the president the timelines for drilling and for the production of first gas. So towards the end of 2024, we're going to see the actual drilling in the near fields. And the next step to that, since the drilling facilities will already be here, it will actually be cheaper for drilling and other exploratory activities to be conducted in nearby areas of the country as well. So we're looking at the Sulu Sea, at certain areas in the West Philippine Sea that can easily be further explored. So the coming in of LNG complements this because the gestation period for the full development of all the other alternative gas fields will take some time. The importation of LNG will therefore secure the supply, the gas supply for the Malampaya, for the Ilihan and the first gas plants in the meantime that we don't have sufficient natural gas supply from Malampaya.
How confident are you that the investors, all of them put together, those who are going to do further explorations, how confident are you that it will produce expected outputs of LNG? Because I know I know that some people said that was a bad investment, that the Malampaya is drying up, etc. Well, is there something you know that we don't know? Are there technical, engineering, or advanced equipment data that makes you confident it's going to be a good deal for the next 15 years?
Well, on Malampaya itself, Cito, we knew from day one, more than 20 years ago, we knew that it was a finite resource. But then, during the time that Shell, Chevron, and PNOCEC were the members of the consortium, they also conducted preliminary studies around Malampaya in the same service contract area. And that's why when the Philippine government failed to act on the request as early as more than 10 years ago to extend their service contract, they decided to pull out because it didn't make sense for them to wait. And we have been lucky that a Philippine domestic investor is willing to carry out the development program for Malampaya. But as for your question about so there's some level of confidence based on what Shell and Chevron and PNOCEC have accumulated over the years that we can get or develop the nearby fields. But as for your question, how certain are we? Well, I would like you to use your prayer brigade precisely to produce those kinds of results. Let's remain hopeful. If you have a natural gas diviner among your ranks, you volunteer them to me so that we can get them going all over the country.
I know you're trying to lighten the very serious discussion, but I, on the other hand, would probably now have to ask you, assuming that one doesn't pan out,
Yes.
What's your backup plan?
The backup plan is precisely the imported liquefied natural gas. So other countries in the region, like Singapore, that's 95% dependent right now on imported LNG. In the case of Malaysia and Indonesia, they have domestic supply and also imports. So does Thailand. Now, because of the Ukraine war, the price for natural gas spiked. And that's what we're trying to prevent from happening in terms of sudden spikes in the price of imported LNG. And the plan is to blend the lower priced Malampaya natural gas with the imported LNG so that we can soften the impact of the volatilities of imported LNG. By 2026, 2025, if we're lucky, there will be more LNG supply coming on stream globally. And therefore, the expectation is that prices of LNG will soften as well.
Unfortunately, we're down to our last minute and a half or two, Secretary. I just noticed you don't seem to be talking a lot about solar. Is that still far in the future for the Philippines? Because I know of places where a lot of the communities have interconnected solar collectors, community generation systems, and they don't even need grids or power lines. It's all within the village, so to speak. What's the plan for solar?
Solar is here, Cito. That's why I didn't get to talk about it extensively, because we're talking about the future plans to ensure power, but solar is very much an element of this. So in the last green energy auction, solar was there as well, and we are encouraging homeowners, government offices to have more solar roofing in order to help address the needs of the country.
Okay, I hope you can meet up with the president and I don't know how crazy it is, Mr. Secretary, but I think if we took out all the taxes on solar as an alternative energy, we could actually reduce the burden on the system because now Australia, the Netherlands, they no longer allow connectivity to the grid because there's just an oversupply of power. But anyway, Secretary, I'm so sorry, but we've run out of time. But could you do me the favor of committing to a second interview in the future to talk more about your plans, programs, and challenges at the DOE?
It would be my pleasure, Cito, and I look forward to not only a second, but other opportunities to converse with you. Thank you very much.
That's a done deal. Thank you very much, Secretary Lottila, and may God bless the work of your hands. May He give you favor and influence, and may people see the good that you are trying to do. Have a great day. God bless you.
Thank you, and we pray with you.
Okay, and now let's go to our closing prayer for the week. It comes from the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 5. All your life, no one will be able to hold out against you. In the same way I was with Moses, I'll be with you. I won't give up on you. I won't leave you. That is the promise of God, our Father, and it is a promise we should all claim. Have a great day. Have a blessed day. Please keep it here on One News. Thank you very much.